one.
Reloading. Buster down.
Hey, what's going on, Champ Squad? Insanity, back with another Apex Legends video. So Season 23 has been characterized by the rise of the support legend class, with legends like Newcastle and Lifeline ascending to the very top of the legend hierarchy after receiving several substantial buffs. Pretty much every team in Ranked is now running a support meta, including Lifeline, Newcastle, and Gibby. But at the very top of the legend hierarchy this season is Newcastle, who really got the best buffs out of all the legends, and really has the best reviving ability in the game. He's basically a necessity on any team this season, so I figured I'd make an updated tips video for maining Newcastle this season, because if you can't beat him, join him. I'll be breaking down tips for his passive, tactical, and ultimate abilities, as well as perk selection, and a few bonus tips for maining Newcastle. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to discuss is Newcastle's tactical ability. It basically allows you to throw down a controllable drone that creates a moving energy shield that blocks both gunfire and grenades. Honestly, this became one of the very best tacticals in the game after the buff it got this season, which removed its health bar and basically makes it impossible to shoot out. This ability gives you and your team instant on-the-go cover, and there's really no counter to it. My biggest tip for when using Newcastle's mobile shield is to be patient when you use it. I see a lot of Newcastles throw down their shield and then immediately push right through it. Use the shield to buy yourself some time, pop a bat, get a better understanding of the opposing team's positioning, and then you can slowly push up with it towards the enemy or reposition after you've gotten your bearings. Try to stick close enough to your teammates so that if one of them gets caught out in the open, you can supply the mobile shield to allow a full team reset. You can also guide Newcastle's mobile shield and redirect it with a change in mechanics this season that allows more fine-tuned control over the tactical ability. I'm still perfecting this mechanic, but take advantage of this new ability and direct the shield to keep constant cover and protection of you and your team as best as you can. Another key tip for the mobile shield is to run a good loadout with Newcastle that you can use to take advantage of this ability. With the shield, just like any other cover, you can peek out and take a quick shot and quickly move back behind the mobile shield. So it's really essential to try to run shotguns when using Newcastle or the wingman. These loadouts will allow you to peek shot very effectively, just like how Gibby uses their bubble to hit shotgun shots. You peek in and take a shot and then go right back behind the cover. I did notice I was winning a lot of my gunfights with Newcastle when I started picking up the Mastiff and peeking outside of the shield to take a quick shot, and then you back up right behind it. Outside of that, Newcastle's mobile shield is pretty self-explanatory. You can use it to get you and your team on-the-go cover whenever you need it. Usually when I'm caught out in the open, rotating, I'll throw down the mobile shield, give myself and my team a little bit of time to reset, and then we'll rotate and get better positioning. So next up, on to Newcastle's passive ability, which allows you to revive teammates by dragging them with your revive shield. So after the buff this season, which provides health regeneration upon reviving teammates, this honestly became the best passive ability in the game. You can stick teammate revives with a high degree of confidence now. Your number one job as a Newcastle main is to position yourself well enough so that if a teammate goes down, you can quickly revive them and get them back in the fight. So the key to successfully reviving with Newcastle is to have good awareness of your surroundings so that you can drag your teammate over and behind some sort of cover as you're reviving them. I'll play a clip of what I mean for reference here. I try to bring my teammate back and behind some cover so they have a few seconds for their shield regeneration to kick in. There will be some situations where you're simply in a closed space, you don't have a lot of real estate to work with. In these situations you'll need to be a bit more careful. You shouldn't just automatically spam res if you're not in a good position. If you go for res and there's nowhere to go, you'll get shot out. So use your judgment. Sometimes you'll actually want to not go for the res right away as it could throw the fight. If you do decide to go for the res, make sure to continue to try to navigate and reposition your res shield to cut off enemy fire. In case you weren't aware, you don't actually have to keep holding down the revive button while resing with Newcastle. You just have to press square and then you can move around freely while taking your finger off of the res button and you're good to go. So next, moving on to Newcastle's ultimate, this builds a castle wall for temporary cover over a target area. My biggest tip for this ability is to also consider where your teammates are and their positioning when you use this ability, and don't leave them in the dust when using the ult. So this ability allows you to relocate and reposition by jumping in the air and slamming down the wall, but it doesn't bring your teammates with you, so make sure not to get overzealous and reposition in a way that leaves your teammates stranded. Having said that, Newcastle's ult is really solid, especially in the endgame if your positioning isn't ideal and you need to create some on-the-go cover for you and your team. Find an area with good position that isn't too far away from your teammates so they can get to it relatively quickly after you place the wall, and it will give you a nice advantage in the endgame. The buff this season to Newcastle's ult also can give you and your teammates shield regeneration when you're in its vicinity, so another good time to pop the ult is if you're caught out in the open, you're losing a fight, it can give your team back some shield and some cover that can turn the fight around. Just don't spam Newcastle's ult in an area that already has a bunch of cover. Try to keep the ult for occasions when you're out in the open with bad positioning, especially in the endgame.
That was quick.
Alright, so on to perk selection for Newcastle. There are definitely a set of perks that are a much better option compared to the other. So for the first upgrade, you'll definitely want to select Hero's Hustle, which gives you increased revive movement speed. This is a huge buff this season. You move really fast when you're reviving, and it's very hard for opposing teams to shoot you out, so this perk's definitely essential. You can also pick for the second one, Ultimate Savior, which gives you and your team shield regeneration from the ultimate. This is a massive buff, and you should definitely choose this perk every game compared to the other option, which just gives the shield wall a little bit more health. Alright, and finally some bonus tips for the loyal fans who have stuck around this far. Tip number 1 is to run the Mastiff or Wingman with Newcastle. These weapons are just deadly with Newcastle's mobile shield. When you pair it with it, he just becomes an absolute tank. You can quickly peek outside of your mobile shield and either shotgun pump or Wingman your enemies for a lot of damage. Another suggestion is to run another support legend alongside Newcastle in your team comp. You'll see, especially in ranked, a lot of teams using Lifeline, Conduit, or Gibby alongside Newcastle, and for good reason. You'll just have multiple legends that can spam res abilities and keep bringing your team back from the dead. Tip number 3 is to not overextend or play too aggressively with Newcastle. If possible, you want to avoid being the first person knocked in any gunfight. As a support legend, your job is to try to stay alive and spam that res as soon as you can to bring your teammates back. So don't overextend, use good positioning, and make sure to rely on your mobile shield so you don't get knocked first. So that's going to wrap it for my How to Main Newcastle guide this season. He's really good right now, very OP. He might get a little bit of a nerf going into next season, so definitely enjoy him while he's at the top. Hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay and the guide, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, I was fine with the R3.